With 2 wards in, Calvary Church and American Legion, Mike Doenges is leading incumbent Mayor David Allaire in those 2 polls across the board. And your mayoral results at this point, with these officials totals being unofficial, but it would indicate that Mike Doenges is the new mayor-elect of the city of Rutland. I'm going to go like that, and it's 8:47. And the note says, Mike Doenges is on his way. So we're actually going to stay on the air and talk to Mayor-elect Mike Doenges. I'm very appreciative of him coming down to PEG TV. So, all right, so here's the mayor-elect. Let's bring him right on and pull up a chair. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. You're never supposed to do that, you know. So.
I know.
Congratulations, Mike.
Thank you very much.
And so you're on right there.
Yeah,
Are we
okay.
on? Yep, we're good. And I'm still on if I didn't pull my wire out.
Hi.
Oh, gosh, you're catching your breath right now.
I am.
You've got to be catching your breath.
I am catching my breath.
Wow.
You get this wave of exhaustion after everything's over, and then you have to come right back up.
Well, you know what I'm going to do first before I ask any questions?
Yeah.
Is this Mike's camera right here?
Yep. That's me.
All right, let me let you talk to the people of the city of Rutland.
All right. So first of all, I want to say thank you. 6 months ago, back in October, we decided to start early so that you could figure out who I was, so that we could, show you who I was as a Rutlander, who I was as a person, talk about my family and talk about why I cared about this community. Really took the opportunity to do that as much as possible. And then over the last 2 months, really focused on, the message about Rutland and what we can all do together. We've got some great support out there. It really feels like there's a mandate in Rutland to take the message that we've been talking about in this future vision and really focus on how do we take the Rutland that we all knew and love and go back to that, right? How do we come back to that heyday that we all want? And that's by moving forward. So what I've been saying, especially in the last few weeks, is, we can either let change happen to us, and we see what that means. That means problems that we need to solve and challenges that are new and almost not things that we want to bring to the table, but we have to deal with. Or we can be the ones that make the change. And I think what you find tonight and through this election is that Rutland is ready for change. They're ready for change to happen to it in the way that they want it instead of in the way that it just comes. And I really appreciate the support from everybody. It's been a really, really long campaign cycle. I was saying to everybody, it's been hard. It's been a tough fought, battle to move forward, but it's very rewarding, and actually the real work begins now, and it's going to be even harder, and we're going to need everybody to hop on board so that we're all moving in the same direction for a better Rutland. So thanks.
Well, and starting with that, so the municipal budget did pass. It passed by a 3-to-1 margin, 75%, which is very
fantastic.
significant.
Yeah.
And so that must be something you're fairly pleased with. That actually, when you start your term, you actually start with a municipal budget, which is nice.
Yeah.
I know that you and David Allaire both had supported the local option tax.
Yep.
So that passed again by a fairly significant margin. And now I did have a question, and I think that still has to go.
Thank you.
And Mike, you may know, and if memory serves me correctly, that still has to get approved by the Vermont State Legislature. Is that correct? And if so, I think there might be enough time in this session to pass that.
So we want to try to get it passed as fast as possible. Any charter change needs to go to the legislature, and so both of the pieces, right? So the 1% option tax and the account that we want to put some of that money into the capital improvement fund.
I see.
Both will need to be passed.
And
by
that
the
passed as well, as we know.
Yeah, so that'll be great, and we can start to invest. Right. One of the other things I've been saying is we need to invest, and investing is really important. If you invest now, you can actually be, you can make, at least save money in the long term, if not be, in a better position financially. So, I think we've talked about constantly, over the last, 10 years of, growing the grand list and relieving the burden on the taxpayer. Those are big items, and those are really heavy things, and there's things we all want to do. There's no question. Right. Everybody wants a little bit of tax relief, right?
I'm a property taxpayer. Yeah. Yes, I do.
Yeah, right. So I think when you think about that, when we have the 1% option tax, when we can choose to invest in big projects, we can take the burden off of the the property taxpayer and leverage people who are shopping in our community as that grows, as we get more retail, as we get more restaurants, as things continue to grow, because that's our target, right? Our target is growth. So as we get there, I think you'll find that those tools become even more valuable to have in the toolbox. So I'm really excited that the residents of Rutland have, and the voters have supported that this time around.
Jim Harrison had just texted me that because I was hoping that someone would give us a smoke signal on what the results of the tax increment financing vote in Killington was, and it actually passed by a fairly significant margin, almost 3-1 on that as well.
Yeah.
And so there was talk during the aldermanic debate quite a bit about, TIF is the acronym, but TIF, tax increment financing, and they're usually districts that are identified. But I don't recall exactly seeing that on the city ballot per se. It was discussed a lot with the Board of Aldermen. So wouldn't that still have to go to a vote?
That'll still have to go to vote at some point, right? And it's actually, if you look, the TIF district is something that's, once it's granted, so to speak, from the state, then you go to bond, and that was what passed, right? It was the financial side, I believe, is what passed in Killington, if I'm not mistaken. So that, are we allowed to go and borrow that money and use it for this project that we've already identified and been approved for? Right. So what we've been talking about in Rutland is how to do that in certain areas of the city. There's a couple of locations. It's a project in process, so to speak.
Okay.
But if we have that, what that does is that saves taxpayers money for improvements in the city. There's no money out of Rutland City resident taxpayers' pockets if we get a TIF and if there's investment, right? So if we want to pave a road around, say, a new hotel, or if we want to put in new sidewalks or even a pedestrian bridge or things like that, anything where the city would normally invest and have to pay and you'd have to pay it as taxes.
Right. It can be done with the increment.
It can be done with the increment instead, and that actually saves the taxpayer money, and it actually helps the developer too, because they would normally have to invest in those sorts of things, but their taxes are going to invest in it. So it's a really nice thing to have. It's awesome that it passed in Killington. I'm not surprised. They worked really hard. They did a great campaign of communicating to their constituency what needed to be done. So I think they did a fantastic job working through that. And Jim and I were talking at an event a couple weeks ago about how much effort they put in, and it's really nice to see. It's really nice to see that work, and Killington's going to benefit from that, and I think Rutland will in the future, and we're going to continue to work towards that as we identify more projects and recognize where those investments can go.
Right, and that was the question that I was on my mind as a city resident was: have there been districts that have been identified or are on the table as considering? Oftentimes it's a blighted area. Sometimes it's just a place you want to focus a light on increasing that development. It might not be a blighted area. And I didn't know if some areas had already been on the table being considered in Rutland.
So
we're only 8 square miles to begin with.
There are absolutely areas on the table being considered, and nothing's been locked in yet. And it's in a working group. So as an alderman, actually, I couldn't be part of that working group because then you have like a quorum, and so that TIF working group is made up of a couple of aldermen, some people from Cedar. So they've kind of identified some areas, but nothing's locked in yet, right? And we also have to make sure that we have projects to go with the areas, right? So you can't just say, hey, I want to do it here because this area needs it. You have to say, here's the project that's going to get us to take place. So whether that's the hotel in around Center Street, the potential hotel we want to do there, whether it's over by the Lindley, whatever those areas may be, are still kind of in flux. But I think the working group has done a fantastic job, and as mayor, I'll most likely get to participate in that. I believe that Dave was participating in it, so
I think you should.
Yeah, and I want to. I think it's going to be awesome. So
yeah, and you can certainly lead with your opinions about where you want that to be.
Of course.
And how we want to get that through. So that will still have to go to a vote. So we'd probably be looking at next March, I guess, really is the next election. We don't have a November. Aside from a special election.
Right. And again, that's only if the TIF district gets approved, so to speak, first and move. So we have a lot of work to do. But there's a lot of projects on target, and I think we can get there. Absolutely.
I know they exist in all 50 states, so they're they're ubiquitous, and some work well and some don't.
Some don't.
So you have to be careful.
And that's actually been a concern from Montpelier. I've heard it from some of our local representatives that we want to make sure if we do it, we do it right. Right. Killington is going to do it right. They've got a great plan together. Rutland, we need to do it right, and we need to make sure that we make the right investments, bond correctly, and work together. And again, that bond is you're asking the voters for approval on that, like Killington did, but
Yes.
it's not coming out of the voters, the taxpayers' pockets.
Right.
It's coming out of that investment.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
So the next question then, of course, you were president of the Board of Aldermen.
Yeah.
And you did not run for re-election.
Right.
So that seat is now becoming open. I think you have about another week in office.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, till the 15th is the transition date.
Right. So who's going to be the next president of the Board of Aldermen?
It's really up to the board. It's going to be discussions. I mean, the way we saw tonight go, it may even change from who I thought it might be. So I'm not going to speculate. I'm not even going to take any shots at it whatsoever.
But, I had to put you on the spot. On
no, it's fine. I've learned to.
You're mayor now, so it's going to be. You got to get used to the.
Yeah. Also saying I don't
I'm just
know, but I'll
warming you
find
up
out.
for what the next 2 years. I'm like,
Thanks. Yeah. I think that's and that's the cool thing about being mayor versus being board president, right? Although they work together and we collaborate and we should be working together, they really are two different bodies, and that's intentional. So it'll be good to see what the board is able to do and put together and put who they're going to put in that seat. So.
Well, when I worked for Jeff Wenberg, and I was a community development director at that time, after I was president of the Board of Aldermen, he hired me, and I went to work full-time at City Hall, and my office was in the mayor's office, just with a suite in between, our shared administrative assistant in the middle.
In the middle, yeah. I know.
When the Board of Aldermen was on in PEG TV, was in its early stages, we had a little TV in the mayor's office. And we would sit in his office and watch what the board was doing. And then if things got awry, then we could just go down the hall
and
say, wait. And that's the way we did it.
That's very interesting.
Very high tech back then.
Very high tech.
Little TV about that big, and thanks to PEG TV, we were able to keep an eye on what was going on. And
I'm just wondering why you just didn't come to the meeting in the first place and sit.
That's a question for the former mayor. I worked for him, remember? So,
there you go. Yeah. Fair enough.
So as far as one other thing I wanted to ask you, though, when you were campaigning, and you did a lot, that the cost of living is really daunting right now for families, and it's getting worse, frankly. We got a little reprieve this winter with fuel prices not really skyrocketing like we thought they were. They're still over $4, but they're not $6. But price of food every time you go to the grocery store is higher and higher and higher. Now, I'm not trying to throw the grocery stores under the bus. It's not their fault. We have some amazing grocery stores here, but just the cost of food. And those things are straining people no matter what, area, no matter what your financial outlook is, the cost. So I'm wondering, when you were out there campaigning and talking to people, what kinds of things you had to hear a lot about that as a primary. It's just getting more and more expensive. Mike, what do I do? Was that the primary thing you're hearing, other than maybe they wanted some change or vision for the future, but were there some fundamental concerns that were expressed to you?
If I got I sent out a postcard asking for feedback, right? I got a lot of feedback. I got a lot of people walking up to me asking me questions. Everybody is aware that the cost of living has gone up significantly. It affects their bottom line. They can't afford the things that they used to. They've had to cut back. But the one thing that stayed pretty consistent, and thanks to the current administration, the current board, is we kept the budget at only 3%. 3% raise. The city can only pull so many levers, and I think that we've done a good job. Like the 1% option tax will help with that. As other people come to shop, that'll relieve here. But it is a concern. Inflation has been fast and furious over the last year. One report says it's going to slow down and ease up. Another report says it's going to keep going. I think what people are starting to sense, it really has started to slow down, at least in my life.
Everywhere but the grocery store.
Everywhere but the grocery store. Yeah, milk and eggs.
I'm not exaggerating.
No, and it's funny because if you think, like, even the egg shortage that we had recently, and those things on a normal day would have been a bump in the road, but now they're a mountain, right? Because of the changes that we're dealing with. So I think there's a lot of awareness to increasing costs over time. And people are struggling, and our job as the city, and you go back and watch any of the Board of Alderman meetings, we're always doing this, like, what can we do? We have to operate, we have to move forward, we have to invest, but what can we do to make sure that our burden is the most efficient, clean, clear, that what we're doing isn't putting any extra weight on anyone else. It's only what we need to do. So I think that's how the city can help in situations like that. I mean, you guys over at Brock, you put a lot of effort into trying to close that gap for people, right? So you have the food shelf over there, and I know you just got those new freezers last year, right? And refrigerators.
Yeah.
By being able to,
authority.
right? So working with those partners to be able to help in those situations is a big deal too. So again, trying to leverage as many resources as possible to help close that gap, but it has been tough for a lot of people, and that comes down to, when they ask, what the question comes down to is usually taxes, cost. What am I going to pay for, right? So.
Listen, I want you to go celebrate, so I'm not going to hold you up in it, but I do want to just ask you one other thing. One other challenge in the city right now is workforce.
Yeah.
And I know that you did talk a lot about that during the campaign and during the debates and so forth.
Yeah.
But I just want to reiterate what a significant challenge that is, whether you're running a business or running a nonprofit like I do.
Right. It's finding people, right?
Finding people.
And it's
I'm going to tell you what's happening right now is people are just taking employees from each other.
Yeah, it's a shuffle of the deck.
And that doesn't help anybody because you put a lot of training dollars into people, and then somebody else offers them $1 more an hour, and there they go. And it's to the point where everyone's just taking from each other, and it's real, and it's a significant problem.
Yeah.
And there's no real answer immediately in sight. So
it makes things tight when we have housing issues and challenges, when people can't find housing. So even if people did want to move here to fill those positions in those locations, they may have a hard time getting here, right? And then Vermont's cost of living is typically a little bit higher. Rutland's cost of living.
Skiing's great though. So.
Yes, it's amazing. Right. So we have to you have to find the balance, like you're saying, but I think the real answer, and what actually I've answered this question, we got a bunch of phone calls tonight from different places asking, what's your first step? I think in the next 2 weeks is evaluating where we're at, looking at what the gap is from where we want to be, at least in the short term, and then saying, okay, here's how the moves we can make to try to fill some of those gaps. So it's like, even with workforce, with housing, with the safety and public safety challenges, with even being able to staff our police force fully, right? All of those things, we need to do a gap analysis. Not that those haven't been done, but maybe even dig a little bit deeper and kind of take off where the current administration is and take another step forward and grow on that a little bit. So,
one last question: do you feel you have a renewed support on the Rutland City Board of Aldermen?
I think I always had support. I always felt very well supported as the board president.
2 new members.
Yeah, we got 2 new members. I think they're going to be good. I think, well, we'll have to see. I mean, the people that I've talked to and the way the board rolled out, based on everything that I've seen, I do think it's going to be a very collaborative board. I think is the best way to say that. I think we're all going to work together. When I got on the board, I said one thing: I will have the discussion, I'll have the conversation. I may not agree with you, but at the end of the day, I know we'll all come to a solution. I think that board will be able to do this, right? Everybody that I've talked to and worked with is very open to collaborating and working and solving problems, and we all want to get headed in this positive direction. So I think we'll be able to get there.
Well, it's a great way to start, and I think that's the exactly right attitude to begin your term with. I want to congratulate you. I'm sure that there's people waiting for you to celebrate tonight, and so I don't want to keep you from that, but I do want to thank you for coming down here, coming on our program this evening. It's a special moment for you and for us. This is one of Rutland's greatest assets, PEG TV.
Oh, absolutely. I was going to mention how much first of all, thank you for hosting this PEG TV. They do this every year. You actually host, right? You MC
forever,
this every year. And so thank you for having us, and thank you for having me on. And we appreciate it, because we sit and we watch this intently to see those results. And I think a lot of people do. And it's great. It's a great asset to have. I actually interned with PEG TV when I was younger.
You did?
Yeah. I was back when I was in high school. I spent as much time, talking to these guys as they can when they come in, and great crew here, and we appreciate everything they do. They are the media outlet for our community. They really are the ones that get the news out. So thanks to PEG TV
and
for
the
hosting.
sports and everything else.
Everything.
Right? Yeah, it's all homegrown right here, hometown stuff, and
It's great.
It's really impressive.
And I feel like I'm going to be spending more time here in this studio, perhaps.
I think that it would be a great way to communicate to the public.
Yeah,
so,
and I'd be happy to do it.
Yeah,
So
awesome.
Thank you, everybody.
And I'm going to look for a raise. I get double my salary here at PEG TV. How about that?
I don't control. That's a different board.
0 to 0.
Okay.
2
all right.
zeros.
You know what? I'll give you a penny. We'll do some funny math on
Mike, thank you very much for coming down. Congratulations again
Tom.
on your victory.
Thank you.
Enjoy your celebration tonight and with all your volunteers and your family. And we'll be seeing you around soon, I'm sure.
We'll talk soon.
All right, very good.
Thanks
again.
everybody.
Yeah.
Good morning, everyone. We're here this morning to swear in our new mayor, Michael Doenges. He's here with his family to help him celebrate a little bit. So we're going to get started here now, and we will issue the oath. Then Mike will sign the form, and I'll sign it along with him, and he'll officially be mayor. So, Michael, are you ready?
I am.
Raise your right hand. I, Michael Doenges,
I, Michael Doenges,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will faithfully execute the office of mayor
that I will faithfully execute the office of mayor
for the city of Rutland
for the city of Rutland
to the best of my judgment and abilities,
to the best of my judgment and abilities,
according to law.
according to law.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Congratulations. Michael would like to say a few words,
Awesome.
if that's possible.
Yeah, I think I can. Thanks everybody for being here. I look forward to the next 2 years. I think that's a good place to start. Not going to talk a lot today. We have a lot to do, a lot to get started on, so we'll move quick. But listen, I appreciate for those who supported. I appreciate the support. For those who didn't, I hope that you find I'll be a great person to work with. And honestly, I'm stoked about what the opportunity is here in Rutland. Everyone that I've had a conversation with since the election has been super positive, so I think that if we keep that positivity up and move forward, a lot of great stuff is going to get done in our city above and beyond what everything that's already been done. So thanks for coming this morning. I appreciate it. Henry got us donuts and coffee, so thank you very much. Henry, there he is. Thank you very much, Henry, for doing that. Feel free to partake. I'll hang around for about 15 minutes and then we're going to go home. So thank you very much for coming.